For this next project, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to actually make a hammerhead walking cane. This is just a piece of maple that's got a rope on it, about 12-inch section of rope. We've used a piece of lace wood that we're actually going to mill part of the hammerhead itself on the machine. So we've used a nice little piece of lace wood to help offset the color, these contrasting colors. Great little project. We'll be using 3 different bits on this project. The first one, of course, is the 2-inch core box bit number 808 from Magnate. We'll use for this section here. We're actually going to be indexing the piece and creating this part of the hammer. Then, of course, we have the 1¼ inch surface planing bit, which is number 2704 from Magnate. We'll be using that to mill the stock round and to create the piece on the end. Then, of course, we're going to use the 1½ inch rope molding bit on this section. The rope section of the bit, that's bit of the piece, that's actually bit number 7572 from Magnate. To mill the stick part of the cane, we're actually going to put the lathe drive handle on, and we're going to chuck in 1½ inch by 1½ inch by 36-inch piece of material. First thing we'll do is mill that to a round. We're doing this on the model 600. For those of you who have the 500, you can refer to the candlestick where we inverted the gears and used the 1/3 inch pitch. If you have the model 1000, you're going to do something very similar to what we're doing here. We've already set our plunge depth. We've set a stop at 1 inch on the right side and at 36 inches on the back sides as a safety measure so that we don't run into our tailstock. Now you'll recall that when we're milling stock round, we're going to offset on the back side by 1/2 inch, and so we're all set to go. You can see that milling stock to a round takes off a lot of material real quickly. Now we're ready to add the 12-inch section of rope here. One word of caution, if you're milling a long section of material, you'll want to do that all in one session. If you mill a bunch of these and come back to them a day or two or a week later, you'll find that some of this material is going to flex on you. That's just the nature of wood. So if you get started on a project that's got long lengths of material, go ahead and finish at that time. Okay, now we've set the machine up with a 3-inch pitch and an 1½ inch router bit to mill the rope section of the cane. Okay, we've already set our plunge depth on our 1½ inch rope molding bit. We've set a stop on the right side at 3½ inches and on the left side at 13½. Now the other thing that we've done is, you'll recall, we want to set a stop at 0 on our y-axis, and so we're all set and ready to go. First thing we'll do is start the router, bring it in, mill a cove on one end, then we'll lock the split nut into place and create that first pass for the rope. Now to create that second pass, we would normally just move the router 1½ inch, which would put us at 12 inches. But because that leaves us a great deal of distance to have to drive the carrier tray back, we're going to cheat the system here a little bit. We're going to actually slide it 3 inches, which is the pitch of the gears, and we're going to do that twice, which puts us at 7½ inches, and then that puts us right in that groove, and now we're going to continue an inch and a half more, which is going to put us right at 6 inches. We'll lock that right down, and then we just have to drive the carrier tray back a short distance. And we're ready for that second pass. Now that we've ended the second pass, we're going to simply open the split nut and create that cove down on this back end here. We've already got our plunge depth set. We'll just hold that right against the stop. Now, of course, you can create whatever little details you want on the piece, but for a transition, we're simply just going to take that bit and move it over 3/4 of an inch this time, just to give us a nice little transition between the two sections. So we'll just release our stop. Recall we're stopped at 13.5 inches. We'll just release that stop, slide it over until we hit 14.25, which is 3/4 of an inch or half the diameter of the router bit, and create that same little cove on that end. For the last section of the cane, we're simply going to use that 1.25" surface planing bit that we used to mill the stock round, and we're going to actually mill this last section smaller than we did here at the first, and so we'll just set that up and do that again. Now you can see that we've used that surface planing bit 2704 to mill this section down to 1 inch, this end, the last inch of it, down to 7/8 of an inch so that we could put a rubber stop on it for the cane. And then, of course, we milled a tenon on this end, the headstock end, that's down a half of it. It's a 1/2 inch tenon that needs to be at least 1.75 inches long, so that it'll receive the hammerhead section, the handle of the cane. And we're going to set up now and mill that section of the cane. Okay, to mill the hammerhead section of the cane, we're actually going to copy the template first and tape it down. And then we'll cut this out on the bandsaw. Once we've cut that section, we'll take the second section and lay this on the piece, and then cut this out on the bandsaw as well. Once we've cut the material out with a bandsaw, you can see that we've cut this surface first, from the top, and then we cut the profile of the hammer itself, mounted an index hub onto the end, and we have put the gears on the machine. We have put the indexing pin into a hole, and we have released the index drive center so that it floats freely. The idea here is that we want to find the flat position of the material so that it's positioned with the pin in a hole. And so what we'll do, we have a surface planing bit in the router. We'll actually bring that router bit in on top of that surface, and when that sits flat, then we'll know that the index hub is set where we want it to be. Once we've done that, then of course we want to make sure that that index drive center is set properly. And so we'll just gently tap that with a mallet a couple times. And now that's not going to slip on us. We can insert that material into the drive center, and we're ready to cut the round portion of the head itself and the indexed section on the head. Once the material is chucked into place, we're going to use the surface planing bit and take about 1/8 of an inch off of this section here. After we've done that, we're going to plunge to this level and add about 1/16 of an inch. And this section we're going to mill to a round. We've set the stop here at 1.5 inches. That will then allow us so we don't run into the headstock. we've milled that surface flat, we're going to bring the router in, plunge deeper here about a 1/16 of an inch, and mill that to a round. We've set the stop at 2.5 inches, put a 2-inch core box bit into place, and we're going to plunge a 1/4 inch deep from this surface here, and we're going to index the piece every 3 holes to give us 8 indexes. Finally, we're ready to mill the mortise. You can do that using one of 2 bits. You can use either a upcut spiral bit, 1/2 inch, or a 1/2 inch 2-flute straight cutter. The 2-flute, if you choose to use the 2-flute straight cutter, you'll want to mill a pilot hole first on the drill press. Because it's not a plunge bit, you'll have to drill that pilot hole. Now we've set our stops at 4 inches and of course 0 over the workpiece. On this case, we're actually going to capture the carrier tray on both sides so it's not going to wobble either way on us. And then we'll just bring our router bit in and plunge down. Now you see we've bandsawed the claws out, a little bit of light sanding. We're ready to go. We'll snap that on the mortise and tenon together. You can see a little bit of cleanup work there, and we've got a nice little cane.